As many of you know, I've shared several of these Lightroom hidden tricks videos already, and they seem to be a crowd favorite. Now, one of the reasons why I enjoy this series in particular is because I often learn something new myself. In fact, I just learned about the first hidden trick in this video 2 days ago while doing some testing of an upcoming Lightroom feature called with my colleague Rick Floor. So I've collected these 5 hidden tricks that I'd like to share with you in this video. Now, here's the thing. Not every hidden trick is going to be something revelatory. Oftentimes, these hidden tricks are just a result of me being asked a certain type of question multiple times to where it becomes clear that most people might not be aware of specific functionality. Oftentimes, it just has to do with workflow related features that serve as quality of life improvements. Other times, a hidden trick is just simply a preference that gets overlooked by many users, but can actually change how you work with Lightroom. So my hope with sharing these 5 hidden tricks is that it'll expand your exploration and enjoyment when using Lightroom. And don't worry, there'll be more of these hidden tricks videos coming, so be sure that you're subscribed to the channel. All right, let's dive in. All right, so not to put too fine a point on it, but it should be no surprise that all of the hidden tricks I'm going to show you here are for Lightroom Desktop. And I mentioned that this first tip, I just learned this just the other day, and I was like, oh man, I'm going to include this because I was already planning to do this kind of a video, and I wanted to start with this one. So here you can see these are some photos I took on a recent trip to California, and I know that this series here, this is a pano stitch that I want to do. So you can kind of see really quickly as I toggle along, these are the images. So the first thing that I want to do here is group them into a stack, which is nothing special. You just right click and you go to group into stack, or you can use the keyboard shortcut of Command G on Mac or Control G on Windows. So you can see we group into the stack, and there are 6 images in the stack as indicated by this badge on the top right of the grid cell. Now, this trick actually is kind of prefaced by the fact that you might notice that in all of my videos, I use this square grid. If you look on the bottom here, there are 2 types of grids. By default, when you first install Lightroom fresh or you reset your preferences, you'll be put into what's called this photo grid. And some people like this. I sometimes refer to this as a mosaic grid. It's because, it shows you your photos kind of front and center, and it gives them a bit more real estate in the grid view. However, for me, I like seeing additional information like metadata in terms of stars and flags and sync status, file name, file format. These are very important for me to see across the board. However, if you've ever noticed when you click on this little number here for your stack, you get what's called either a film strip. Some people call it a drawer or a cabinet. I call it a film strip. And there is some helpful information here. Like over here, you can see there is this little square thumbnail that shows the total number of images in the stack. And then you've got kind of the same photo grid. Now, whichever image here that you see has this icon, that's the cover photo of the stack, and you can change it to any other one. You just select the image, right click, and you can set as stack cover. But that's not the trick that I want to show you. What I just learned is actually you can change the film strip from this kind of default photo grid to more of a square grid, which will give you more information. But it's not very intuitive. Like if you click and right click, there's nothing to indicate how to do that. The reason for that is you have to be in detail view. So what's detail view? It's basically when you select an image and you either double click on it or you press D and you open up into detail view. Now, if you go to the bottom right over here, this has always been here. This is the icon to show the film strip. So if I click up here, you'll see there is the film strip, except it's showing you all of the images in the album, not the images in the stack. So check this out. If I right click, you'll see there is this menu item here in the contextual menu called film strip style. And this is what I learned, is that now there's this option called square. And this is what I love because it shows me file names, and you can see it has the ability for me to either add metadata, or if I actually have metadata already applied, I'll see that here. And that's going to actually be the next hidden trick. So watch, if I drop back to grid and I now click on this little badge here to show the contents of the stack, now you'll see we are in this square grid view, which is, to me, much more helpful. And of course, if you position your cursor right here, you can increase the size of the overall film strip, which might be more helpful just because it makes it easier to see the information on your screen. And so, again, when I learned that, I was like, that's really, really good. And I've used Lightroom for a long time. And honestly, I never used the film strip because of that. I just didn't care for the photo view. It wasn't very helpful to me. And so to learn just 2 days ago that you can change that, it was awesome. And I was very excited to share that with you because I guarantee you there's going to be at least one viewer who watches this video who's going to be like, oh man, that's what I've been waiting for. And so at least that's my hope. So if that's you, then leave a comment below. I'd love to know. Now, for the second trick, it's related to this in terms of using metadata with stacks, because this is something that has confounded me. And I know it's confounded other people because I get asked this question a lot. So by default, when I'm about to stitch some panos, what I like to do is give them a 1-star rating. 1 star doesn't really mean anything specific to panos. Oftentimes, if I'm just like culling an album, I'll give images that I want to spend a bit more time on. Or if I know I want to edit, I'll just give it a 1 star so that I know those are the ones that I need to spend time on at the beginning. So here, watch, if I click here, you could see the image is selected and I give this a 1-star rating. Well, notice that only this image here, and again, notice that now we have the 1-star view here, but only that first image got the 1 star. Now that can be confusing, especially if you have the film strip closed. Like imagine if you click here and you give it a 1-star rating, or even if you click here and you give it a 1-star rating, it only applies to the selected image. That's just kind of how the grid view works. It very much has to do with the image that is selected. So my second hidden trick is, again, let's say you have this closed and you want to have all of the images in the stack have 1 star. You'd have to click over here and then you can select the remaining images. And again, you can do multi-image select here in the film strip, and then I can press 1. And now you can see that all of the images in the film strip here have 1 star. Now, of course, I can go ahead now, click on the filter icon and then filter by images that have 1 star. And I have them here as well. So this is kind of like a backdoor to seeing all of the images in the stack without using the film strip. And so really quickly, I'm just going to right click, go to photo merge, select pano merge, and then click on merge. All right, so there you can see, because I had these images selected with 1 star, a few things happened. First, the pano inherited that 1-star rating, which you may or may not want. But let's go ahead and clear out the filter. You can see that because I did not have the option to add to stack enabled when I stitch this, the pano sits outside of the stack of the original brackets. So all I need to do is take this and drag it over here. That adds it on. You can see that the number ticked up to 7. And this goes back to what I talked about a minute ago about changing the cover photo. Obviously, you'd want the pano to be the cover photo. So just click here and select set as stack cover. And now that cell is showing you the pano stitch. But now you might want to change the rating. Maybe you want to give this 2 stars to indicate that this is a stitched pano that you want to edit, or you might not want to give it any stars. And so this second hidden trick, it's more about me wanting to show you the relationship between stacks and metadata changes. So depending on what you have selected, if the film strip view is visible, if you apply, say, a star rating or a pick flag, it might apply to just one image, or it could apply to all of the images in the stack. And again, this is a question that I've been asked a number of times, so I thought it would be worth sharing here. Now, in terms of the third hidden trick, admittedly, this is not something I really use often, but I mentioned that I just got back from a trip to California, and Fujifilm was kind enough to loan me this X100 Mark VI. It's the only camera I took with me. So this hidden trick is especially helpful to Fujifilm users, not just of the X100 VI, but Fujifilm users and any photographer who likes the camera profiles that are built into your camera. So most cameras these days allow you to choose like a profile. But what a lot of users don't know is that you can actually still retain those profiles in some cases with the RAWs when you import them into Lightroom. So I'm going to show that to you right now. All right, so you can see I've got this empty album here. There's nothing in here. And on the desktop, I have this folder here with 3 images. And these are RAW files. These are Fujifilm's RAW. It's a RAW file format. And so the trick here that I want to show you is before you do your import, you'll want to go to Preferences, and then you'll want to click on the Import tab. And then for the RAW default setting, by default, it's going to be Adobe Default. Click down and select Camera Settings. And this is really important that you do this before you import your RAW files. And you can see that it says right there, Camera Settings honors in-camera applied styles/color simulations whenever possible. So why I bring this up with Fujifilm is because if there's one thing to know about Fujifilm cameras, and especially Fujifilm owners, is that the film simulations that they add to the cameras are beloved. They're almost revered. Not just the film simulations, but also the film recipes that users have created and shared. But specifically, it's almost like a selling point where these cameras have a bunch of Fujifilm's classic film stocks simulated. So the thing is, primarily when you enable a film simulation, that gets baked into the JPEG. But you can also benefit from that with the RAW, with that setting I just showed you. So here you can see by changing to camera settings, I'm going to click on Done. I'm going to open up the photo drawer and I'm going to click on Add Photos. And then I'm going to navigate to the Fujifilm folder here that I mentioned, and I'm going to click on Review for Import. And so you can see here, basically, I was standing here with my camera, and all I did was I took 3 photos basically of the same subject, and I just changed the film simulation on the camera. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Add 3 Photos. Let's close the photo drawer so we get more space. And now watch, if I open the Edit panel with the first image selected, and actually I'm going to close the film strip because I do like having generally, especially when I'm editing, the most amount of real estate here. But you can see here, we have this profile called Camera Nostalgic Negative. If I go over one image, it changes to Camera Classic Negative. If I go one more time, we have this Camera Eterna/Cinema. And so these profiles attempt to simulate the film stocks that you have on the camera. And if you click on the profile browser and expand camera matching, you can see all of the other camera matching profiles that attempt to simulate the film simulations that you have on the Fujifilm camera. And so this kind of gives you the best of both worlds, where for me, I prefer editing any file. It doesn't matter which camera. I prefer editing the RAW. That's just who I am. It's just unlikely for me to ever just take the JPEG from a camera, even if it has the film simulation or the film recipe already baked in, and just send it to my phone and share it. That's just not for me. And that's totally fine if that is you. It's not a criticism. I just know myself. Point is, with these camera matching profiles, if they're available for your camera, you kind of get the best of both worlds, where I can apply the profile and still have access to the underlying raw data to make my tone and color edits. And so all you really need to do is open up your RAW file from whichever camera you took, go here, click on the profile browser, and then expand camera matching. And if there are camera matching profiles, you'll see them listed here. The preference that I showed you, again, if you go to preferences here, what this preference setting does is basically it tells Lightroom to automatically apply the camera matching profile if there is one available. All right, so for the 4th hidden trick, this has to do with a brand new feature that we introduced in Lightroom Desktop 8.4 and Lightroom Classic 14.4, and that is distracting people removal. You access that by clicking on the remove icon here, and then you'll see under distraction removal, there is a people section. As soon as you expand this, Lightroom will start automatically detecting potentially distracting people, and it will put pins and overlays over the areas here. Now, let's say, for example, these 4 blobs here, these contain people that you want to keep. What I've seen people do is they just click here and they click delete, and they click here and click delete, and so on and so forth. And that could be tedious, especially if you have, as you can see here, a bunch of different spots. So I'm going to undo this, and I'm going to show you a very quick and easy way to just delete multiple spots at once. All you need to do is press and hold on the Option key on Mac or the Alt key on PC. And when you do, you see that the overlays disappear. But again, I'm still pressing and holding on the Option key. And what I can do now is click and drag to make a selection over the pins that I want to delete, let go, and they're all gone at once. So again, like I said, some of these hidden tricks are not revelatory, but they might make your experience using Lightroom more enjoyable because it just makes things more efficient. If I know that, oh, I just hold the Option or Alt key, click and drag, and those pins are gone, to me, any time that I can save is time well spent. All right, so for the fifth and final hidden trick for this video, it has to do with versions. Now, I've said this many times, and I'm actually going to link to a video at the end of this one to explain what versions is and how to use it. Versions is probably Lightroom's most underrated and powerful features. It just offers so much more scalability to how you work with your photos in Lightroom. The best part is that your versions sync to all of the other cloud surfaces of Lightroom, so Lightroom Mobile and Lightroom Web. Now, for me, a lot of times what I want to do is I want to prepare an edited photo for different social media platforms to share. So what does that mean? Well, what I'll do is I'm going to go to crop, for example, here. And let's say I want to create a story image, which for Instagram is a 9:16 aspect ratio. So what I would do is go to the aspect drop down here, select 16:9, and press X to flip it. And then I would position this however I want. So maybe something like this, giving myself a little bit of empty space over here for copy. And then I would just press E to exit out of crop. Well, I want to create a version of this. I don't want this to be the only version. And so what I would do is I would go to the versions icon over here. I'd make sure that I'm under the name tab, and then I'd click create version. And then I would call this 9:16 and maybe IG story, just so I know. And so you could see there is the IG story. You can also see I already have existing SDR edits and HDR edits. And I wish I could show you HDR edits, but unfortunately, my screen recording software doesn't support that. But let's go ahead here. I'll go back to SDR. Now, let's say I want to go ahead and go back to crop, and I want, say, a 1:1 square for just my Instagram stream. So I can go ahead here, crop it however I want, something like this. That looks good. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create another version. So I'm going to call this 1:1 IG post. And let's just say I want this square crop, but I also want for it to be in black and white. So I'm going to change the adaptive color to adaptive black and white. Let's say I'm happy with these edits. I'll go back to versions and I'll create another version. And again, I'm going to call this 1:1 IG post BW. So here's the hidden trick. You can see I've got all of these different versions. And you might think, well, all right, so now I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to have to click on export and select export and then load this version and select this and select export again. You don't have to do that. If you click on this little try dot over here, this one over here, not the ones next to the versions, you click here, you'll see that you actually have some very handy shortcuts. Obviously, you can delete them, which we don't want. What I want to focus on is exporting. So I'm going to go ahead and click on all named versions, JPEG. Click on it here. I'll just export them straight to the desktop. So I'm going to click on export. And now when I go to the desktop, look what I have waiting for me. And the best part is the reason why it's important to give descriptive names to your versions is it's added to the file name. So I know that this is 1:1 IG post BW. Obviously I could see it here in the thumbnail, but it just makes it easier to identify. And not only that, it exports the original, so you can see that is the unedited version. Here is my HDR edit, my SDR. This is that vertical that I can use for a story, my post, and my black and white post. So again, I mentioned how some of the hidden tricks are functional, like how you can change the film strip view, but it's the quality of life hidden tricks that I love. I love discovering them and I love sharing them because those are the things that I think really make Lightroom more enjoyable to use, like the versions one. I use that all the time because I do create versions for different social media platforms. So depending on the aspect ratio and the size, I use those all the time. And so to be able to export them at once is great. Now, These are just a few little kind of hidden tricks and niceties with Lightroom Desktop. There is so much more to learn for this app as well as Lightroom Mobile and Lightroom Web. So if you want to learn all of that, then please do check out my course called Lightroom Everywhere. Links in the description below. I mentioned how I also have this video if you want to learn more about versions, and you really should check that out. As always, if this video has been helpful, a thumbs up will be great, as is clicking on the subscribe button and the bell icon to get notified of all future videos. Thanks a lot, everyone.